What's up, friends? Welcome into another episode of Tables, Tailgates, and Top Loaders. So happy to have you all aboard for this special episode. I'm your host, TB. Thank you all so very much for stopping in and checking out the 3 T's. Now, we have a lot to get to. Now, what my plan was, I figured this was going to be a pretty quiet holiday episode. I figured that we would talk maybe a little bit about new Topps products. We would dive into a little wrestling chatter heading into John Cena's final match coming up this weekend. And then, of course, obviously we would discuss the huge Bills win over the Bengals. But then something strange happened. So right as I sat down to record, there was a crazy loud knocking sound on my door. Not a friendly tapping, if you will, but a deep echoing thud that sounded like someone just dove off a camper through a folding table onto the cold, frozen ground. The room that I'm sitting in right now, suddenly it got very cold and a chill came over me. The penny sleeves on my desk started to flutter, and all of a sudden, a shadowy figure slid into the doorway holding something that looked suspiciously like Bray Wyatt's lantern. This mysterious figure seemed to stare right through my soul and announced, "TB, tonight you will be visited by 3 ghosts. The ghost of hobby past, the ghost of hobby present, and the ghost of hobby yet to come." Then in true Bray Wyatt fashion, the shadow whispered, "They're here," blew out the lantern, and suddenly vanished, leaving nothing but the faint smell of an extinguished flame in my recording room. So here we are. It seems like the spirits of the 3 T's want to take us on a little bit of a journey, and I've got no choice but to see where the heck this leads. So come along with me on this very special holiday edition of Tables, Tailgates, and Top Loaders. That's right, folks. It's a 3 T's Christmas Carol, and it's time. It's time to open the first door. So I grab a hold of the handle, I throw open the door, and I'm greeted by the ghost of hobby past. Now he looks mysteriously just like Jake the Snake Roberts, carrying a canvas sack I can only presume is holding the ghost of his pet python, Damien. He tells me to hang on, and suddenly we are flying through time and space and come to a crashing halt in the bedroom of 11-year-old TB. It's the early 90s, and my bedroom walls are lined with newspaper cutouts of the Buffalo Bills, Shane Conlon and Cornelius Bennett, Nate Odoms, Bruce Smith, Howard Ballard and Kent Hull, Pete Metzlars and Steve Tasker, Andre Reed and James Lofton, and of course, the great Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly. This was the team that lit the fire that would burn for the next 35 years moving forward. We keep flying. There I am again. This time I'm sitting on my couch, clutching a pillow to my face. Tears are flowing down my 11-year-old cheeks. I just watched the ball fly off Scott Norwood's foot, floating 47 long yards through the air, ultimately sailing wide right of the uprights as the final seconds tick off the clock at the end of Super Bowl 25. Heartache begins early in life for 11-year-old me. Little does this TB know, however, that there will be much more to come. We keep on flying, and then Ghost Jake yet again shows me little TB. This time, I'm at something called a mall, and it appears I am there for a card show. I'm searching for specific cards for what would be my very first personal collection. I'm looking for none other than the first baseman for the San Francisco Giants, Will Clark. Now, I grew up playing first base, and despite him being a lefty, I was obviously not. I was a righty. I wanted to play baseball just like Will Clark. And now, it would take the young TB a few more years to learn that he was a total a-hole, but hey, what are you going to do when you're 11? That's okay. And the 1990s Donruss baseball card I'm looking at in the mall, there stood Will the Thrill, donning the eye black and rocking the awesome first base glove. Great stuff if you are an 11-year-old kid. And there were others. And I was willing to spend big bucks back then as an 11-year-old kid. I tipped the scales, shelling out a whopping $1.75 for a very specific Will Clark card. I had no clue what was going to happen 35 years later to the hobby. Ghost Jake, he drags me out of the mall, and suddenly I'm back sitting on my floor surrounded by 1992, 1993 NBA hoops cards. Young TB knew nothing about penny sleeves or top loaders, but he had a freaking fabulous time putting together that awesome Chicago Bulls team. There's Will Perdue, John Paxton, Bill Cartwright, Horace Grant, B.J. Armstrong, and Scott Williams, and finally, Scottie Pippen and the GOAT, Michael Jordan. There was never a thought about how much my collection was worth or how I could easily flip cards. This was just straight joy. It was so much fun to collect as a kid. There was no stress. There were no worries. The hobby was easy. It was accessible. And as an 11-year-old kid, it was glorious. Now, Ghost Jake, he then takes me to see young TB glued to a television set at a friend's house. Now, this kid's dad, he loved wrestling and would always order the big 4 pay-per-views. So this would be the year that would completely hook me. This was the year I officially became what is known as a wrestling mark. It's 1990 and Hulk Hogan just eliminated Mr. Perfect to win the Royal Rumble. He would go on as WWF champion, and a few short months later, he would face off against one of the most larger-than-life characters young TB would ever see, the Ultimate Warrior. Fast forward to April 1st, it's WrestleMania 6, and we are about to experience magic from the Sky Dome in Toronto, Canada. The Intercontinental Champion, Ultimate Warrior, would square off in the main event against the WWF Champion, Hulk Hogan, in a title-for-title, champion versus champion, winner-take-all match labeled the Ultimate Challenge. Now, in this Ultimate Challenge, the Ultimate Warrior would emerge as the victor, and this match would mark a huge turning point in WWF history. Little does young TB know that 35 years later, he would be rocking a t-shirt showcasing not only these 2 iconic WWF superstars, but this very same WrestleMania match. Ghost Jake finally talks. First time, and he manages to whisper, "These are the moments and the memories that cannot be forgotten. This is why you are here today." He flips his canvas bag over his shoulder and disappears into the night, and I am left with a huge feeling of nostalgia, simply yearning for the times of old. I'm suddenly standing back in front of the second door, which at this point I decide to take with a little more aggression. I kick this sucker wide open. There, in a blinding flash of light, this time through the door emerges the ghost of Hobby Present, who looks eerily similar to Dion Dawkins, rocking a Santa hat and an oversized Schno University t-shirt. He, like Ghost Jake before him, grabs my arm, and once again we are off and flying. Now, Ghost Dion, he whisks me off to another room, which is difficult to recognize at first. It's a hobby shop of some sort that's filled with people. There are breakers off in the corner. They are live streaming box openings and convincing people to drive up price after price as they're making bids to land a spot for some random sports team. People are arguing with employees behind the counter over card comps. They're handing out their phones, or they're holding out their phones, showing the employees eBay listings and recent purchases, and it seems like no one can agree on fair prices for literally anything. In another section of the shop, middle-aged men are hovering over larger cardboard boxes containing bargain deals and dollar fines from baseball and football products from 20 to 30 years ago. There are little kids near a locked display that are eyeing up graded Pokemon cards, which are listed for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It's so chaotic. It's so overwhelming. And I got to be honest, I'm not enjoying the scenery nearly as much. And I'm kind of thankful when Ghost Dion drags us off and away from the shop. With Dion flying arm in arm, we are flying down a dimly lit road, heading toward a huge shape in the distance. And from afar, this object looks like an alien spaceship. As we get closer, it starts to come into focus, and I realize that we are hovering over Abbott Road. We are looking at the new Highmark Stadium, future home for the 2026 Buffalo Bills. We stare at this immense, crazy-looking structure, wondering how it all came to be. Suddenly, before my eyes, dollar signs are flashing, and there I am with my lifelong friend Mike, and we are signing contracts and making deposits for something called a PSL, and essentially locking ourselves into 30 years of commitment to this very Buffalo Bills team. 30 years ahead of us as full-fledged members of the Bills Mafia. Now, we know this new stadium will be a glorious sight to behold in just a few short months, but before I can even think about that, Ghost Dion, he flies me down to the practice field that's down the street. There, like a mirage in the desert, is none other than our modern-day freaking superhero, Josh Allen, JA-17 himself. He's leading his team through a practice in preparation for another division matchup against the first place New England Patriots. I stare in disbelief and wonder how we ended up currently in second place, staring up at the standings at this same team who has been such a thorn in our side for 20 freaking years. I look over to the defensive side of the field and I see player after player being attended to by the medical staff. The list of limited and unable to perform practice participants grows greater and greater by the week. It's getting downright scary, and I know that thanks to Uncle Scrooge McBean, there will be no reinforcements coming to help us this Christmas. I keep looking and I see one-armed bandit Joey Bosa standing off to the side with a very sad look on his face. The injury bug has hit him yet again. Now, hopefully this is a minor one and he will be ready to play in the weeks ahead. Also, who is that? Oh, that's none other than Ed Oliver. What is he doing? Oh, he's sitting on a horse. His arm is wrapped in a sling, and I wonder if he could possibly return for a playoff run. We are flying around the field, and there off in the corner is offensive coordinator Joe Brady. But he's looking pretty confused. He seems to have misplaced something. Could it be 95% of the playbook? He's looking everywhere, and he finally just gives up. He throws his arms in the air, shrugs his shoulders, and simply says, "It's okay. We got Josh." He then presses play on the loudspeaker. Suddenly, the whole field house is engulfed with Mr. Brightside. The whole team stops mid-play and begins dancing in place. Dawson Knox, Dalton Kincaid, they both start running around the practice field with their arms out to the side like airplanes. What a time to be alive. Ghost Dion doesn't stop, though. He keeps me flying. I am seeing historic monuments flashing underneath me, and I quickly realize that this is the nation's capital. This is Washington, D.C. We pause over what appears to be an arena. This is the Capital One Arena, to be exact. There's a huge billboard next to it flashing in bright lights. December 13th, WWE's Saturday night's main event. The last time is now. John Cena versus Gunther. Ghost Dion reminds me of the If Money Were No Object by the Week 3Ts segment, and apparently it still exists in the 3Ts Christmas Carol. So I hop on the SeatGeek app. I drop $370 just to buy the worst seat in the building to ensure I am there on the 13th. This should be a can't miss show because in 4 short days, we really won't be able to see him. I cross my fingers that this will be a great show. I hope that this will be a great chance to showcase some of the younger batch of up-and-coming talent, a chance to highlight what's on the horizon for the company, and most importantly, hopefully give a fitting send-off to one of the greatest to ever step foot in the squared circle. It will be an emotional night for wrestling marks, myself included. A night that's been over 20 years in the making, and it's crazy to think about how fast the time has gone. Soon, Cena's career will be a part of the 3Ts nostalgia trips, but for now, that's not part of this crazy 3Ts Christmas Carol. Ghost Dion, he drops me back in my recording room and peels off like he's driving one of his drift cars. I am left alone in a cloud of dust, and then suddenly, door number 3 presents itself. I already know where this is going, but I'm a bit worried, to say the least. I slowly open the third door, and I am greeted by the ghost of hobby yet to come. This time, this ghost isn't recognizable. This ghost is wearing a mask, a dark hoodie, just like the mysterious figure who jumped the cage in the last Survivor Series War Games match. Is this the ghost of future Seth freaking Rollins? It's hard to say, but nevertheless, he silently grabs me by the arm, and once again, we are off and flying. I quickly realize that I don't like the looks of this one at all. It appears that we are now in another country, and I look below. There is a ton of sand. Lots and lots of sand below. I strain my eyes to see. Could it be? Is that Bill Goldberg's house below? Oh my goodness. Please tell me it's not. My suspicions are correct. The ghost of hobby yet to come, aka possibly ghost Seth freaking Rollins, has taken me to my worst nightmare. We are in Saudi Arabia, future home to WrestleManias 44 through 69. After the huge success of WrestleMania 43, WWE has signed a 25-year deal to host the Showcase of the Immortals, and it looks like there is no turning back. I look down and see very few actual wrestling marks in the seats. There are nothing but Saudi princes everywhere. I look up to the top of the stadium. It seems money appears to be raining down from the top of the stadium. Triple H, now 84 years old, is standing in a ring full of money. There are advertisements covering every square inch of ring canvas that you can possibly see. And now, as the wrestlers come down to the ring for their matches, their entrance music is now sponsored by various corporations. Each match is being broadcasted on a different streaming app. It's pure madness. And future TB, well, needless to say, he's not very happy. But then the picture flashes to WrestleMania 69. The lights go out in the Saudi stadium. A hush falls over the crowd. Suddenly, we see a countdown on the screen. And when the count gets down to 1, I find myself holding my breath. Then the music pierces through the silence. Break the walls down! SmackDown? After 33 years, Chris Jericho has returned to save the WWE. He grabs the mic and vows that we will never, ever return to Saudi Arabia again. Maybe there is hope after all. At this point, Ghost, maybe Rollins, flies me out of the desert, and now we are suddenly in a Walmart of all places. Inside, grown men are ripping Pokemon boxes and retail sports card exclusives out of the hands of children, stacking them in their carts, then making their quick getaways to get home and post the boxes on eBay for 5 times the going rate. Stocked shelves are quickly emptied in seconds. The products, if you can grab any, are all made by Topps, having recently acquired the licenses to every sport on the planet, as well as college, high school, and kindergarten. Topps now owns it all. They own everything. And as a result, they have continued to escalate prices higher and higher. The hobby is shrinking. It's shrinking for most people. It's become completely out of reach for those who used to be in it for the fun factor, which, by the way, is the most important category. But then suddenly, Ghost Maybe Rollins flies me through Topps HQ, and we are suddenly in the office of the president of the Topps Corporation. He's sitting in his computer, and it's clear he's listening to something. He seems to be streaming a podcast. Can this be? It's absolutely unbelievable. The president of the Topps Corporation is listening to the very first episode of Tables, Tailgates, and Top Loaders entitled, Why Are We Here? And suddenly the president lets a single tear roll down his face. He finally has seen the error of his ways. Thanks to TB and the 3 Ts, the president decides it's time to get back to basics and give the hobby back to the kids. Help to rebuild the emotional connection that drew us all in the first place. He picks up the red phone that's sitting on his desk, and as Ghost Maybe Rollins flies me out of the room, I hear him say, "We have made a terrible mistake. We need to start over." Suddenly, I have new hope. I know there is one stop left, and I know before we get there that Ghost Maybe Rollins is taking me back to Highmark Stadium. The cheer of the crowd is getting louder and louder as we approach. The lights are so bright, and it looks absolutely stunning, absolutely magical. Images of future Bills games are flashing right before my very eyes. There in the stands are my kids and their families. There's Mike's kids and their families. And the bond and the connection to the team has been passed down to the next generations. They've all experienced the heartache and the pain of loving this team, the highs and the lows. But quickly I realized they've also experienced the greatest joy one can experience in the NFL. Ghost Maybe Rollins flies me through the stadium, and then I see them. Bright lights illuminating them from every possible angle. There they are, the championship banners, proclaiming the Buffalo Bills as Super Bowl champions, winners of the ever-elusive Lombardi Trophy. It has finally happened. This is the reason we do what we do. This is the reason we keep coming back year after year. This is the reason we love this. And as Ghost Maybe Rollins drops me back at my recording desk after a crazy night, I'm convinced that our past, present, and future have been and will continue to be shaped by the personal stories, the memories, and the emotional connections that fuel our passion for these 3 incredible hobbies. Thanks for listening, my friends. Have a great holiday and a very Merry Christmas. So until next time, whether it's ripping packs, breaking tables, or dropping elbows, keep doing what you love. And as always, go Bills.